Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and the Odd One Out. We host Mark. Today I'll be covering Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2, Episodes 12 to 22. Now, it's been a while since I recorded this. I've taken a while to get through these. Just been busy with other stuff, really. So, let's kick off with Episode 12 of Season 2, which is The Royale. Now, I had to look on the internet, and some people think this is a terrible episode. Some people love this. It's famous for an internet meme, animated GIF of Data Friends, some craps dice, and doing a funny move, and Worf being looking suitably unimpressed. It's kind of fun. Anyway, but the whole episode's kind of like that. It's one that recycles old Trek memes, which is, for example, aliens constructing a world for humans, such as in the Cage or the Menagerie, and also some new Star Trek memes from Next Gen. Which are things like that. It was reminiscent of the Holodeck Gone Wrong episodes, really, and even had an idea or two that I think was taken from the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's basically they're caught in this hotel which has been constructed by aliens to entertain or divert this human that's stranded on this planet, but these guys encounter it and the human's long gone, but it's still kind of running. Hey, this is a fun episode. This is definitely a fun episode. In fact, it was one of the few episodes I watched twice. I went back and watched it a few days later because I just found it so entertaining. There's a few laughs in it. There's a bit where Picard has to read this book that this entire hotel complex, whatever, simulation is based on, and it starts with the lines, "It was a dark and stormy night," and looking at Picard's face when he reads that line, it is kind of fun. And there's other things, Data breaking the bank by using his how he can figure out how dice are likely to fall, so he sort of manipulates that, and from that point they're kind of sure to win, kind of thing. Is the way the story's constructed. I like Riker also being a big shot and sort of spreading the money around, like saying things like, "When the train comes in, everybody rides." But it's also fun to see Worf being quite unimpressed by the whole thing. It's also fun to see Data saying things like, "Baby needs some new shoes." Things he's picked off reading about craps. It was a fun episode. As I say, I watched it twice. I enjoyed it that much. It's one I'll remember for a while. Number 13 was called Time Squared. It's one of these sort of time loop episodes. There's a time loop going on, and this features like a Picard and a future Picard, and its setup is really kind of intriguing. And there's also some interesting ideas about how Picard, he kind of knows the future, and then how that may affect his current decision making because he's trying to second guess himself about why he's done a certain thing that's in a future thing, and it's kind of how that might affect his decision-making abilities. However, but it's a very undeveloped plot, not very well realised, and the final act is incomprehensible from a sort of character, reaction, motivation point of view. So it was kind of all over the place in that respect. It was a shame, really, because if it had been put together better, an actor of Stewart's calibre would have made this one of the greats. I saw the kernel of that in watching this, but it was just really poorly put together, so it's kind of not a good one in the end. One of the poor ones, though not the poorest in season 2. After this was a kind of a cool one because it was about a kind of Riker backstory. There were definitely parts to enjoy. Firstly, it was an episode which was kind of team-centric, though it was mostly about Riker with a little Worf. Everyone kind of got a moment and some decent dialogue in this. And I did like the Worf, as I say, the Worf stuff about the right to ascension, or whatever that Klingon thing was, that was pretty cool. They had to simulate a sort of a Klingon right to make Worf feel better. He was obviously quite grumpy for the episode, even more so than usual. But the whole thing with Riker and his dad and his daddy issues, it was kind of fun, but it wasn't great. it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't done brilliantly. And there was also this side story about Riker getting a promotion, and we all knew it was going to amount or anything, so it had no tension about it, unfortunately. There was a bit. I'm not a big fan of So Bad It's Good, but there was definitely a bit of So Bad It's Good in this episode. Basically, they had to have this contest, a fighting contest between Riker and his dad. His dad was pretty old in this, and they talked about doing this thing that's the ultimate martial arts. Then they basically had two guys dressed up in like plastic suits, like from Tron, colourful plastic suits, swinging giant Q-tips. It did not look like the ultimate martial arts. Let's put it that way. And they were just swinging blindly. It was not precise, it was just silly. There's nothing to enjoy on it, but it didn't have this a great central plot. What I will say is Pulaski was pretty good in this. Whenever she was on with the dad talking about their past, she was really good. Diamond was really acting well, but unfortunately the dad wasn't, so she was kind of acting off the screen. There was also some good scenes between Pulaski and Troy, I thought, and Troy and Riker. What this episode made me think about was the fact that Star Trek Next Generation really shows how that good actors can elevate a scene, and also the performance of mediocre actors. Whenever there's a scene with Stewart and the good actors I think in Next Gen are probably Picard and Data, and Guinan's quite good. The guy that plays Worf is pretty decent, and Diamond Pulaski is pretty decent. And when they're in a scene, they make the other actors look good. But when the other actors, none of those are involved, and it's just the other actors, not so good. LeVar Burton, I also have to say, I think it's a pretty decent actor too. I've kind of forgotten him. So the Icarus Factor, not a great episode, but decent. Number 15 was one called Pen Pals. This is one where Data contacts a little alien girl and kind of gets emotionally involved with her, or gets involved in a way he has to help her. There was some problems with the episode. The dialogue was extremely functional. And as I just talked about sort of mediocre actors, when they don't have a decent actor in the scene, it doesn't work. This was a very good example of that. The dialogue, as I say, was very functional. Whenever it just involved mediocre actors, it was really dull and flat. But it worked really well when sort of Data was saying it. So it shouldn't have been a good episode because it was kind of it's kind of a sort of, serious business. What would you call it? A sort of issue episode. Let's put it that way. But yeah, a lot of issue episodes are essential to sci-fi, so I guess that's it. So Data formed this relationship with this little girl, and the planet was kind of blowing up, and Data shouldn't have been involved because Prime Directive and all that. But Spiner really sold it, and I think Stuart Mulder also sell it really well. But I mean, this was Spiner's episode really, and he really sold its Data. There was also this subplot involving Wesley's first command mission, which really wasn't dramatic at all. There was a cool shot that did make me laugh, where Riker and Wesley sort of both did the famous Riker chair maneuver, where he throws his leg right over the chair and sits with his arms on the back, as it were. It was fun to see Wesley do the same thing, learning from Riker. It was kind of funny. Right, number 16 of this series was Q-Who. We get Q back. Now, season 2 is supposedly a terrible, terrible season, but we've already mentioned in the first 11 episodes there were some really tip-top ones. And this is... This is a really good episode. That basically they're meeting the Borg for the first time. And I think pretty much all of the Borg episodes in Next Gen are really good. And this one was the first. It's the best, really. It was an exceptionally good episode. It was riveting. It was fun. It was just really entertaining, really engaging, exciting. I'd say Q-Who was one of the great episodes. And, of course, the Borg are one of the great high-concept villains in all of sci-fi. They're kind of borrowing a bit from Doctor Who and the Cybermen, but they are their own thing. It was a very dark tone in the whole episode too. I like this idea of the themes of humans being unprepared for the dangers of space being explored. That's kind of, you don't usually get that in Star Trek. Usually it's all hopeful and optimistic, but this kind of sort of was the downside. I wouldn't say pessimistic. It was more like we best be careful out here kind of stuff. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was probably the best of the ones I'm going to discuss, actually, but I haven't got to the end, so we'll see. Number 17 was one called Samaritan Snare. It was pretty terrible. Basically, they've got a ship full of idiots, and they kind of have to help. These idiots are flying around in space, effectively. And when I say that, they're kind of not. They seem quite unintelligent and simple-minded, but they've got a spaceship. And it kind of doesn't really work. It was a pretty bad episode. It kind of felt like a comment on society, and it was possibly one of these issue shows, but I don't know. It felt like a Star Trek version of the movie Idiocracy, and it just didn't really work. There was a cool story where Picard tells about when he was young, he got into a knife fight. Which was cool, but the reason he told it was because he's basically stuck in a shuttle with Wesley, and that whole subplot of that about them two being stuck in a shuttle together seemed dopey. But having said that, even though it was dopey, it was still better than the main plot. But a poor episode all round, really. Number 18 was Up the Long Ladder. I did laugh at this because it was based on the central premise that if you encounter a group of Irish people, civilians specifically, in space, there's a good chance they're going to have a pig under their arm. It was kind of that comedy racism kind of thing that Star Trek sometimes does. Star Trek Next Gen in particular sometimes does. It wasn't as cringy as other ones I've seen, but it was kind of silly that, they had pigs under their arms. Anyway, there was some fun banter going on though from the sort of charming head of the Irish space wanderers, but also I had Rosalind Lander in as a nagging daughter, and she's a good actress, and she was good in this, and she looked really, really great actually. There was also some stuff with Pulaski trying to do stuff with Worf to have like the tea ceremony about Klingons, which was kind of, I don't know, filler, but it was kind of fine. Overall, I quite liked the episode. It was a classic. Excuse me. It wasn't a classic. It was just about good. I liked it. And number 19 was an episode called Manhunt. Oh, this was bad. It was basically taking the joke that occurred earlier about Lwaxana Troy's mother, sort of fancying Jean-Luc and then making comments about how much he desired her, and they had the whole episode was that, and really the only fun thing is speculating whether if Lwaxana was actually not just stroking her own ego, but actually telling the truth about Picard, and Picard's actually a closet sex maniac. It was kind of made me laugh while I was watching it. But this whole Lwaxana joke about how Picard feels about it was stretched way too far in this episode. It was a shame. Majel Barrett, I kind of like Majel Barrett, but it was kind of caricaturish. Number 20. Oh, this was a good one. The Emissary. This is a great one. And if you are familiar with Next Gen, it's the one where Worf encounters an old flame who's a woman who's half Klingon, half human. It's that one. It's a really enjoyable, solid episode, which kind of doesn't bother with silly subplots. It just gets on with the main story and serves that story really well in the time given. I really like this device of a half Klingon, half human woman who gets to feel how being half Klingon is to Troy. I really like that bit. She was also a foil and ex-lover of Worf, and she had a sense of humour, which she said she inherited from her human mother. Female mother. I was going to say human mother, which Worf finds quite exasperating, and probably it's intimated in the script it got her into a lot of trouble in Klingon society. It was extremely well written. There were some slender premises going on, but it was really well developed. And this character, it's been a week or two since I've seen this. I think it's Kayla is how it's pronounced. In many respects, she's kind of a reverse Spock. She's trying to express her Klingon side and express her human side rather than the other way around. She's much more comfortable in her human side than she feels. It's almost like a raging beast with her inside her with the Klingon side. It's almost like possession. It's a very fine episode. And another one that belies the commonly held opinion that season 2 is full of rubbish. It wasn't. This was really good. Right, number 21 was called Peak Performance. Well, it was all right. It was kind of a fun episode. It wasn't remarkable. It was basically Picard and Riker acting on different sides in a war game simulation. But really, the whole crew seemed to be dicks to this guy that's come on board to help with the simulation. But he's a dick back to them, so it's like, but they have to figure out how to beat an enemy without weapons when the Ferengi turn up, and it's kind of a blah. And there was also this subplot about Data losing his confidence because he lost his game to this master strategist, which was goofy. Data just gave up kind of because he'd lost confidence. That didn't ring true at all. It was all right though. It was all right. Finally, we get to 22 Shades of Grey. Wow, what a terrible episode. This was. It might be the fact this is the last episode of season 2 and people remember this, that gives season 2 its rather poor reputation. This was terrible. Basically, it was a Riker clip show. From what I read, they ran out of money and they had to do it on the cheap. So what they did is they had this framing narrative of Riker being in this coma, which was causing his nerves to degenerate. So Pulaski had to stimulate his brain cells to keep his nerves firing to stop the degeneration, which meant he dreamt. That was the premise. But the thing is, it was just some loose clips of Riker doing stuff from the season 1 and so on. But they don't build or develop in any sort of coherent narrative. There was sort of scenes of Pulaski and Troy just monologuing to each other to show how they understood what was going on with Riker, and it was just really awkward. I felt bad for the actresses, actually. It just seemed like, oh God, what a terrible thing to have to sort of act through. What I will say is, though Pulaski's okay, it kind of, for some bizarre reason, it's just made me think, oh man, I wish Beverly Crusher was still in it. But, she's not. We haven't got long to wait, though. She's in season 3, so, yeah, fair enough. This was just a terrible, terrible, terrible show and a way of closing the season. So, I'll try and make the next one a bit less of a wait. But we're moving into season 3 where things reputedly get rather good. Now, I have watched all of these before, but can't remember where the really quality stuff starts really coming in. I'm pretty sure it is season 3, but we'll see. Okay, so that's the end of this Good, Bad and Odd One Out. Bye from me.